Okay, how not to get wet under a tarp. Those of you that follow my YouTube channel will probably smile at this question. To be fair to Jeff, this question came before I made that video, and that video about how to stay dry under a tarp wasn't made in reaction to this question from Jeff. I think this question from Jeff is a sensible question. The video on YouTube was made as a reaction to some dumb comments that I got about my lightening the load videos, where I was looking at lightweight tarps amongst other things, and also the video that was linked from that about how to set up the lightest of those setups. I got some fairly dumb comments like, that'll be all right until it rains. And yeah, okay, fair enough. Some people are skeptical about whether or not tarps will keep you dry in certain weather conditions, and I think we should address that, particularly in the context of Jeff's question here, which is a sensible one. So Jeff's question is, I noticed you like to sleep on the ground under a tarp without the benefit of a tent. How do you prevent rainfall from leaking under the tarp and getting your bedding wet? And that's a genuine concern, and actually if you don't do it right, that may well happen. You may well get wet under a tarp if you don't do it right, and I think that's the key thing. You have to do things right. You can't just buy kit and expect it to do everything for you without engaging your brain. And again, this is not aimed at you, Jeff, just to be clear. It's just some of the comments that I've had on YouTube about tarps. Yeah, okay, if you put a tarp up high on the edge of a woodland with a prevailing wind coming from that side, yes, the rain is going to blow under the windward side of the tarp. Of course, that's just physics. But it's about being intelligent with where you put your tarp. So I have spent hundreds, probably into the thousands of nights out under a tarp. I live and work outdoors many months of the year, every single year, and I have done for a decade full time, and before that part time in terms of working, and I've hiked and camped since I was in my late teens, and I'm now 43. So I am talking from 25 years of experience of hiking, camping in the mountains, camping in the woods, camping in the UK, camping in Scandinavia, camping in mainland Europe, camping in Africa, camping in North America. Okay, I am talking from that perspective when I talk. I am not sitting here for the YouTube commenters, I am not sitting here speaking from the perspective of theory. Okay, I'm speaking from the perspective of experience. If you put a tarp up high on the edge of a piece of woodland when it's windy, yes, you will get water underneath it. If you are under a very small tarp and it rains very, very heavily, that water can bounce off the ground and splash under your tarp. Yes, those things can happen. But I'll give you a recent example, or an example from earlier this year. We were between courses that we ran, and actually one of those courses was the episode where we did the live Ask Paul Kirtley with a live audience asking the questions. That was the 2-day course that we did back in April, I believe it was, if I remember rightly, end of March, beginning of April. And between that course and another course, we had some really, really bad weather, and it was fairly unpleasant when we recorded that episode. You remember us talking about that, and if not, I'll link to it in the show notes. It was wet and it was windy, but it had been a lot wetter and a lot windier before that, and it was very wet and very windy after that course. We stayed in the woods after that course, and a storm came through, and it was horrendous. We had trees coming down in the woods. There were areas of the woods that were flooded, but I did not get wet under my tarp. And the reason I didn't get wet under my tarp was because I was intelligent about where I put it. Aside from making sure that I'm not under a tree that's liable to blow down or parts of it to blow off, that's the primary concern. You're then intelligent about where you put it. Where is the weather coming from? Make sure that you're not on the edge of the woods on the side where the weather's coming from, or even on the edge of a clearing in the woods in the direction that the weather's coming from. Get into the woods. On that course, the 2-day course, we didn't have the students put their tarps up where they normally put their tarps up on the 2-day course to camp, because of the way that the strong wind was coming into the edge of the woodland. We had them camp just, it was a very slight rise, just on the other side of this slight rise, maybe about 100 yards at most from where they normally camp. The difference in how windy it was between where we'd normally have students camp on that course and where we put them because of the prevailing wind that weekend made a huge difference to their comfort, both in terms of temperature and in terms of protection from the rain. So being intelligent about where you put it is the first thing. In terms of macro positioning, where is the weather coming from? Where is the best side of these woods? Where's the best side of this hill? Where am I going to get some shelter? Even one side of a tree stump or another will make a difference to how much wind and rain will get anywhere near you. The next thing you need to do, clearly if you put your tarp up and you're in a localized dip, what can happen is the rain comes down off your tarp, hits the ground and then flows underneath your tarp and you end up lying in a pool of water. You don't want to be doing that either, so look for local minima, look for local low spots and avoid sleeping in them, avoid spanning your tarp between them. That is the primary thing to do there. Think about where water is going to go when it flows off your tarp. Think about where water is going to go on the ground generally if it rains heavily. And as I say, I spend lots and lots, it varies, but I spend between scores and hundreds of nights out in a year under a tarp, depending on what I'm doing, what year it is. Some years I've spent more time out than others. Some years I've spent more time in tents. Some years I've spent more times on trips in tents and less time in tarps. It depends, but I've spent a lot of time out under tarps, and only on a handful of occasions have I had any water run under my tarp, because I always do my utmost to make sure I think about it and I position my tarp correctly. Don't need to spend a long time. This is not an involved process. Yeah, macro, where do I put it? Micro, where do I put it? And then put it up. Doesn't need to take a long time. A good tip from a friend of mine when you're looking for somewhere to put your tarp up is take your rucksack off. When you come to the general area you're going to put your tarp up, take your rucksack off, because if you're at the end of a long day's hike and you're tired, and this rings true, it's a piece of advice I heard him giving somebody recently, and it's not one that was at the forefront of my mind, but it is now. It's a good one. It's something I do, but it wasn't something that was sort of in my conscious mind as a piece of advice. Put your rucksack down and then walk around finding a good spot, because if you've got a big heavy load on that you've had on your back all day, the thing you want to do is put it down. And so you'll put it down, and if that means that's where you're going to put your camp up, it might not be optimal. So put your rucksack down, make sure you can remember where it is, of course, and then find that localized spot that you're going to put your camp, put your tarp up. It doesn't need to take a long time, 5 minutes at most to choose a good spot. All right, that's that thing. And then the third thing is then use a bivvy bag. Use a waterproof cover for your sleeping bag, and your sleeping mat goes inside that and your sleeping bag goes inside that. That gives multiple levels of protection for your sleeping gear. It means that it's not going to get wet, and we'll come back to that in a second. It means it gets dirty less quickly, which is important because dirty sleeping bags don't work as well in terms of keeping you warm. And it also gives another layer of protection in terms of thermal efficiency, stops drafts, just in the same way as you putting a waterproof jacket over you stops the wind getting into your thermal layers. Putting a waterproof cover over your sleeping bag stops the wind taking the warm air away from your sleeping bag. It also traps another layer of air between the sleeping bag and the bivvy bag, so it makes it more thermally efficient. It keeps it dry, it keeps it clean. In terms of keeping it dry, you can, if it's a really good bivvy bag, it will stop the rain getting in. You can even have your feet sticking out the bottom of the tarp. If it's a small tarp, pop the bottom of the bivvy bag out the bottom of the tarp a little bit. That means you can get your rucksack well in above you. That stops drafts coming down your neck. You can put your dry clothes on top of your sleeping bag, on top of your rucksack rather, above where you're sleeping. You're nicely cocooned in, you're nicely encapsulated in your sleeping bag, in your bivvy bag. Everything's together as well. Remember I said put your sleeping mat inside as well. Then you're not going to slide off it. The exception to that, I would say now, is with the advent of those thick X-bed mats and similar, they can be quite hard to get inside a bivvy bag and a sleeping bag. That's the flip side of those. That said, if I was doing a lightweight tarp trip, I wouldn't have one of those. I'd use those more for sleeping on rock on canoe trips, and I use them for winter trips sometimes when I'm in a heated tent. I generally use a thermarest, either a full length one or a 3/4 length one, and a bivvy bag and a sleeping bag if I'm sleeping on the ground and I'm comfortable, and I've done that for years, and I have never got my sleeping bag wet sleeping on the ground unless I've been sleeping out just in a bivvy bag that isn't a completely like a mini tent, like a double hoop bivvy bag. So sometimes you want to sleep out under the stars. I remember one evening I slept out, sleeping mat inside the bivvy bag, sleeping bag inside. It had pretty heavy rainstorms overnight, and even though I fastened things quite up, water is going to get in. What I find in those situations works best is if you don't have a bag that will zip over completely and have a little hoop in it, like some of them do. I don't tend to use those anymore. If I want a lightweight tent, I take a lightweight tent these days because lightweight tents are so much lighter. But if I am sleeping out in a bivvy bag, only a bivvy bag, no tarp over me, and it starts to rain, most bivvy bags have got some sort of hood that will cowl up around your face. The best thing to do with those is not try and put them up over your face because water will just come in. The best thing to do is lie on your front with the hood over your head so it protects and it stops the rain coming in. That will work well. And people are going to ask about biting insects and things. Yeah, if you've got biting insects, you're not going to be sleeping out like that in the first place. If you know there's going to be midges or mosquitoes or black flies or anything else, you take a shelter that's appropriate. So hopefully that helps. Choose the right spot. Macro sense within the woods. Choose the right spot. Micro in terms of localized low spots. Make sure you put your tarp up in a sensible spot. Make sure that your sleeping bag is inside a bivvy bag and that bivvy bag is waterproofed, and you will have no problem. As I say, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nights spent sleeping out like that. I really enjoy it. I like sleeping outside. I know some people prefer hammocks. That's fine. I don't personally. I quite like sleeping on a flat piece of ground. I find it better for my back. I find it's better for my kidneys. I find I sleep better that way. That works for me. I don't get wet. I don't get water coming in the side. I don't get water flowing underneath. It's just about intelligent choice of where you put the tarp in the first place.